My hair is weird too.
Hi, I'm Samantha Anderson, Director of Communications for Newton Public Schools, and I'm here with Superintendent Dan Rankin. And we're here to go over last night's Board of Education meeting, as well as just any questions you may have. They can be about the board meeting or they can be about anything else. Just leave them in the comments section and we'll get to them as soon as possible. Well, first of all, the board did approve the PBC, so Public Building Commission, interlocal agreement. Could you just let us know what that is and what they approved?
Well, the PBC, the Public Building Commission, is an entity that was started years ago that essentially has allowed us, the three entities, the city, the rec commission, and the school district, to provide some pretty quality recreation facilities for the Newton school communities. And so the mill levies that are created or established for the Newton Recreation Commission kind of take into account the USD 373 share in their mill levy, in their appropriation. But the school district is the one, since it's a USD Recreation Commission, they approved that. Well, 0.8 mils of that rec commission mill levy is kind of on behalf of the school district to be put into the PBC. To be able to provide, like the turf at Fisher Field, the improvements at that ball field complex, as well as the baseball softball complexes at both Fisher Field and up at Centennial Park. It's a good deal for the school district from a fiscal perspective, because we're able to use general fund dollars that we're able to generate and not have to use it for the upkeep of those or the building of those sorts of facilities. The PBC approached the Board of Education in, I believe it was September of this year. And that's based upon some conversations that were had before my time to increase the number of mills, 0.2 mills, which is about $40,000 on behalf of the school district, and then about that much on behalf of the Recreation Commission next year, to be devoted to enhancing building a new pool facility, and also renovating and creating a couple of more ball fields up at Centennial Park. That will allow us to be able to play both our baseball and softball games in the spring in the same location, rather than having them split between Fisher Field and Centennial Park. So this was the third meeting in which the first meeting was where we had a presentation from the city representatives and the PBC representatives, as well as the Recreation Commission. And then there was more of a discussion at the prior board meeting, and then and there was a vote where it was not approved. And then there was more discussion had since that time, and they voted last night to approve that. So I'm excited about being able to ensure that we can appropriately fund the PBC, because it's a good fiscal deal, a good financial deal for the school district, and it provides quality facilities for the city of Newton and just the Newton school community.
All right. You also had a number of items in your COVID update. Can you just go through some of the main ones, the gating criteria, the changes with Cooper, the remote Wednesdays, and the aid sub decision?
Yeah, they've approved the yellow mode of operation based upon the data that was collected yesterday from the state site, the KDHE site, and also from the district in terms of attendance. And so when we look at that, and you can go to board docs and you can pull down the actual document itself, but we essentially had our trend data in terms of the cumulative incidence rate, the 2-week comparison. we're up, but we're only up 3 cases from last week, comparing that to the week prior when you look solely at the state site. If you looked at how we had been calculating that all the way through, we're up 17 cases from 2 weeks ago compared to the previous 2 weeks of that. So when we consider that a smaller increase than it was over the previous, then we kind of lean towards that orange category for that particular gating criteria. Percent positive, we're at a 9.83, which is down, puts us in yellow in that area. For attendance, we had a staff rate that was slightly outside of the normal, and then a student range which was within the normal, which puts us at a yellow when you average those two. So we essentially had 2 yellow colors and 1 orange, which that makes a yellow chart reference, which the board did approve up through the 13th of November. So you'll essentially, including this week, have 2 additional weeks in which we'll be in that yellow status. Now, I will say this, and this is one of those things to always remember, if we have huge spikes in cases or something, I always reserve the right to reach out to the board to maybe hold a special meeting if we need to reconsider that mode of operation based upon what the local data does say. It doesn't make any sense to stay in one mode when conditions say that we should be in a more restrictive or least restrictive mode. You look at the local referring hospital capacity, we're at yellow, and then the cases per 100,000 for the 2-week period, we're still in red. So we had 67 students yesterday. As of yesterday in quarantine, 31 staff. At that point, we had 16 positive cases, 8 students and 8 staff. So across the district, we picked up 4 more today. So the other things, Cooper Elementary, they requested that we bring to the board a change in the criteria in that they would be allowed to remain on site unless they are in red. So they don't want to go to a hybrid at all. And I really support that for a lot of reasons. It's a lot more difficult to engage in remote learning with those pre-K students. And their largest class size was also 9. So social distancing is not an issue with those. So that's a positive as well. We also approved remote Wednesdays for November the 18th and December the 2nd. And that really is being done for all but Cooper and Opportunity Academy, essentially to allow our teachers a little more time for collaboration. I know it's difficult for parents. We're going to make sure that we work to have latchkey in place on those days for those students that need custodial care. But our teachers also are so swamped, it's giving them a little bit of time to engage in some more collaboration. I know this past Wednesday, I know there was a lot of apprehension on the part of staff, but this past Wednesday, I know a lot of staff reached out and said that they enjoyed having that time where they felt like it was just a little bit less stressful for them. They're just like the rest of us, their stress levels are all pretty high. One thing that we're struggling with substitute teachers. If you are eligible for a substitute license, we need as many as we can. But one thing we also have are several of our aides that are eligible or could have an emergency sub license. So we're going to take care of the cost of that for this year and also for next year. And we'll kind of see how it works after that so that we can use those aides. They would be certified in that emergency sub level to where they could fill in for all of the holes that we're having right now with cases and also with quarantines. So a lot of stuff like that going on. We'll have adjustments like that every time.
Okay, we've had a couple questions come in, and if you have any, make sure you leave them in the comments section. So one individual was asking about last night, you said something about the classified staff using sick time. Can you clarify on that?
Sure. For those classified staff that are eligible for sick leave, that have sick leave, and unfortunately not all of our staff do based upon the number of hours that they work. in a meeting with a group of classified staff, it was actually our bus drivers doing National Transportation Week. I was able to go out and talk with them. They had a great suggestion. Is there the possibility of using on those days where they aren't driving or working in their capacity, and we can't find something comparable for them to do? Could they use sick leave? So that's a local decision that can be made. Once again, I know these are pretty tough economic times for all of our people, and I want to be able to make sure that since we've already budgeted for those expenses, they could then use that sick leave, and our board was more than agreeable to do that. If you remember last year when they went remote, part of the legislation was that we had to pay our classified staff during that time in order to qualify for that. That's no longer the case. However, our classified staff are generally among our lowest paid, and we want to make sure if we can take care of them. We're still trying to work out some other things for those other employees that don't qualify for those hours, but we're just trying to do everything we can to make sure that we're not leaving folks without a paycheck that are counting on it.
Okay, this question kind of related to that. What if a staff member uses all their sick time during these remote times, and then their kids get sick, they get sick? What would they have to do then?
It's just like any other time when they're out of sick leave, they don't have leave. And I hate that, but if we can come up with something creative between now and the time that might happen, hopefully we can have something in place, but I can't make that guarantee. This is just a function of where we are. So when you're out of that sick leave and can't apply that, you can't apply that. Now, I know that there's a sick leave bank that's accessible. I apologize for not knowing all of the ins and outs about that. And I'm not sure if they would qualify in that case for this, but that's one thing that we could consider, or maybe looking at trying to figure out ways to donate sick leave from individuals. It just, once again, we're kind of in uncharted territory with some of this stuff, but we want to try to economically support those that are working for us to the greatest degree possible, but sometimes we can't. So that's where we are with that.
Okay, Charlene, you asked us to explain the 2 remote Wednesdays. We did already go over that, so let us know if we didn't answer your question. Okay, this is something you went over last night. Someone asked you to explain why students who are absent from school because they are quarantined due to COVID-19 are not counted as absent in the gating criteria.
Well, not counted as absent if they are doing their work. Okay, it's just like our staff members that are remote from home or quarantined or excluded. If they're able to function and do their work, they are not counted as absent. And I know that that's a point of contention about. That's why we report those numbers along with those attendance values, or along with the gating criteria, so we have a sense of what that impact is. And it's also a little bit of function of our student information system of generating the reports, because it generates it based upon those that we count absent. So we don't technically count them absent since they are doing their work and are following through with making the meaningful daily contact and stuff. So that is the reason why. And I know some folks don't agree with that, and I'm okay with that. But once again, we're going to be consistent on how we count that. And we have been all the way up to this point, and we'll continue to be.
Okay, and Renee, it's November 18th and December 2nd for the remote Wednesdays.
Correct.
And then, okay, this is a good question. How will teachers engage in collaboration if they are still teaching remotely on remote Wednesdays? The elementary teachers go live multiple times each day. Our schedules will be different unless there is more direction. So is that something that they'd want to work on in a school building level?
They'll be doing that at a building level. They'll be scheduling their meetings with their kids, but they won't be on with their kids all day long. Obviously, all parents, I don't know of any parents that want their kids to be on screens all day. And it won't be a day off. It will be a day for them to do some additional planning when they're not meeting with their students or collaborating with their colleagues, which right now, with a lot of our sub shortages, a lot of our teachers during their planning time, or part of their planning time, are having to help cover classes or cover lunches and things like that. So it gives them a little bit of that opportunity to do some of that stuff that they don't have now. It's just what it is in terms of there's not many other ways to provide those opportunities.
All right. And then someone wanted to clarify for the hybrid days, would they be all elementary and all schools except Cooper and Opportunity Academy?
For the hybrid days, I'm not sure what you mean by the hybrid. If
Oh,
you're thinking
for the remote
only,
days, excuse
yeah,
me.
for remote only, those 2 Wednesdays will be all except for Cooper and Opportunity Academy. That is accurate.
That's a good question. And then if anybody has any more questions, make sure you leave them in the comments section. One that we always get after our first snow day is how do you decide when a snow day happens?
Oh, that's a tough one, Sam. You know, everybody, those are the fun days, right? It's just like yesterday morning. You know, went out about 4:15 checking the roads. Our transportation director, Sheila Swalene, was also doing the same. Drove roads until, I don't know, 5:45, 5:30, something like that. Communicating with Sheila to see how the roads that she is driving are. Also reach out to area superintendents. They're also out driving the roads, as are their transportation directors if they have them. And then we continue to listen to weather forecasts. We check the weather updates. And then we just ultimately, it comes down to taking all that information and making a decision. So, yesterday when I made that decision, pretty early in the morning, I don't know, Sam, when I called you, it was 5:45 or so, whenever that was. It was kind of one of those 50-50 days, thought, man, it would be fine, maybe, but you never know. And then when I was pulling out of my approach in my driveway, I slid all the way down my driveway. So I knew when I left to come to the office that morning that was a pretty good call. And so then, like this morning, when you look at the weather forecast last night, they're talking, mainly the icy stuff was supposed to stay south of us. And they were looking mainly at snow and looking at a smaller amount. So at 5 o'clock when you're out, nothing happening. 6 o'clock, nothing happening. When I woke up at 4, looked out the window, there was no moisture. And then at 6:45, you start hearing the pellets hitting your windows and you're going, holy moly. I actually had a superintendent meeting this morning at 7 a.m. and every one of the superintendents in the area were saying the same thing, saying, man, teachers and kids are already, and buses are already on the roads. Parents are already getting ready if they're not already headed to work. You can't really make a snow day call at that time. So it's one of those deals where you just do the best you can, making as good a decision as you can, and you're not always going to hit it 100%. You go out now, it's wet, but just like this afternoon when I was driving over to Santa Fe at 11, the roads are slushy a little bit, but they're just wet now. So those are tough calls, and we have to keep into consideration too. We've only got about 5 snow days built in, probably the way things will work out. We could go remote only on those days, but I struggle with that a little bit sometimes. But there may come that point in time that we will run out of days in terms of the 1,116 hours we have to meet from a statutory requirement. And when we have these inclement weather days, have to go remote only. So that's a tough one. That's one I almost want to call a student and say, give me, what should I do today? And see what they would probably make as good a call as I do when it comes to days like this. It's just too bad weather forecasts are what they are. They're doing as best a job as they can. Just the timing of this one this morning was terrible.
And then someone did ask, is there a chance that we would ever delay the start with weather? Or I know sometimes that creates problems in itself as well.
From what I understand, and I've not done a lot of digging here, historically, that has not been the case. Had we done that this morning, it probably would have been a little bit better. But I just haven't done enough research other than in my initial inquiry. That's not something that they have done here at Newton. Doesn't mean we can't, but man, that really puts parents in a bind a little bit too. So I have done a couple of hour delays, and I know a lot of rural districts do that more, but that's something we are going to consider. It just puts people in a bind, parents that work. So does the snow day put parents in a bind. So.
Okay, and then Last but not least, could you let us know about the hiring incentive program that was passed, I think it was last night?
Well, yeah, it was actually passed last night. We're offering and I'd have to pull up the actual document, Sam. I didn't run that document off, but we're offering a hiring incentive bonus for classified staff positions that we are not able to fill. And once again, it's because we're not able to fill transportation. We're not able to fill food service. We've got aid positions open. There are two different levels, a $600 and I believe it's a $300 level for aides, a $600 level for the other. And there's also a referral bonus too for staff that was included in that last night. And I apologize, I did not run that specifically off, but it was something that we're trying to do to improve recruitment. There are some rules associated with that, like we wouldn't give you a sign-on bonus and then you quit and then we rehire you back again within a couple of weeks to get the sign-on bonus again. We won't do that. And it's split out over a couple of different pay periods. So that once again is also in board docs. If you want more information about that, please check that out. But it's a strategy we're trying to see if we can encourage more folks to apply for positions we have open here in the classified ranks.
All right. Well, that's all the questions we have. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Thanks for your continued patience and your grace you're showing all within USD 373. It's been really, as I say every time we have these meetings, a pretty difficult fall. And we're starting out winter with a bang with the nice weather days we've had. And if you have questions, let us know. We're here to serve you folks.
All right. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, you can use our new feedback and questions form on all of our websites or email us at info@usd373.org. Thank you so much for being here and thank you for watching.